I'd like to start my presentation, which is a very, very important topic. And with that, let me just begin. Very good. You see on your screen, you should be seeing the five candidates for the California State Government Governor's position. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So all five are running, as you know. I'm not going to be talking about polls or anything of that nature, but I will be talking about what the position of California Association of Realtors is on at least one of the candidates, and that is Mr. Tom Steyer. And CAR opposes him along with a coalition of realtors, the California Building Industry Association, the Prison Guard Association, IBEW, and I will run just one video, but before doing that, I'd like to let you know why CAR has taken such a position in opposing this particular candidate. That it has to do with his stand, the candidate's stand on split tax roll and the understanding that he will be weakening the protections that Prop 13 have provided us over decades. That is the primary reason why CAR is opposing Tom Steyer. Here is what you can do. If any one of you can go to canotforsale.com, you can check the video yourselves. This thing came out last Friday. Just wanted to keep you up to date on that. So if you come across ads like that, you are not perplexed. There is a reason why CAR has done that, and that is, as I explained to you, because their thought, their reasoning is that this particular candidate will weaken Prop 13 and would initiate and or help split roll tax. All right, let's go on to our presentation. Now, what we have done at GAOR is the following. We wanted to find out how rents have increased in the past 8 to 10 years versus inflation in our cities, both Glendale and Burbank. Burbank is of interest to us. We have a guest, Harry Timorian, with us from AOR, Burbank AOR, and of course a lot of our practitioners do conduct business in Burbank as well, so the analysis includes both cities. The analysis is designed, and after we concluded it, we found out that it really is challenging some of the core assumptions that is driving the housing policy today, such as rent control and so forth. We keep hearing the narrative that, rents are over and above inflation, wages cannot keep up with it, and what have you. And I will tell you, as always, in City of Glendale, whatever we do in our research and put it out in the public for the public consumption, it starts with data. In other words, we are a data-dependent association, and we really emphasize that and depend on it in all of our presentations. So let's begin. The Glendale growth versus inflation. This is for the period of 2017 to 2026. One bedrooms have risen 22.5% in about 8 or 9, maybe 10 years, right? One bedroom rents have risen 22.5%. By the way, these are transacted rents based on apartment lists, pretty much like at least my deduction out of it was the Case-Shiller index type of a thing, right? Two bedrooms have risen almost the same amount, about 22.5% or so. But look at CPI. CPI in the past 10 years has risen about 36.2%. So transacted rents, according to apartment list, have risen a whole lot less than CPI, right? But then I thought maybe we should include what we all know as professionals as the shelter CPI, which is the owner equivalent rent and the residential rent payments and what have you. By the way, that 41.6% is part of the 36%, but I wanted to separate it and isolate it so you can see that 1 and 2 bedroom rents in city of Burbank, city of Glendale has not risen any more than, in fact, it's almost half of the shelter inflation. That's an important fact to note. Now, let's go forward and check out Burbank. Burbank's increase in 1 and 2 bedrooms were a whole lot less, about maybe 5% less than, well, actually 22% versus 17% in Glendale. So again, when you compare Burbank to the shelter inflation as well as CPI, you see that we're nowhere close to those two numbers, right? Then what we thought we would do is go across another database just to pressure test our hypothesis and make sure that these numbers aren't just pulled out of the vacuum. So we went to CoStar, which is a resource that GAOR uses for its analysis a lot of times. And we looked at 44,000 units, and we also checked the 44,000 units, the asking rents for the past 10 years, right? So the 1 bedrooms, according to CoStar, rose the asking rents in the past 10 years, about 20%, and the 2 bedrooms about 22%, pretty much in line with what apartment lists transacted rents informs us from. And when you compare them to, again, the inflation rates, both inflation rates, you see that even CoStar, with covering 44,000 units, shows a whole lot less than the inflation rate, right? The same thing for Burbank, by the way, right? The asking rents in Burbank were also a whole lot less than the inflation rate. This is where we thought, okay, we have the asking rents, transacted rents, all showing a whole lot less than the inflation. This is a major policy consideration for our legislators, for our city council, and what have you. But then, what about wages? How does that come into this equation, right? We know that in Glendale and Burbank, whether it is the asking, whether it is the transacted rent, we're way below the inflation rate. But have wages kept up? How does the rent increases within the last 10 years compare to wages? And that column is that pink column that you see. Wages have risen by about 35%, 36% in the past 10 years. More so than rents have, right? So you have all measures, by all measures, rents have modestly increased now. Again, these are median rents, by the way. Some may be higher, some periods may be lower, but on the average for the past 10 years, 9 or 10 years, this is the result. This is the story, right? All of these graphs, all of these numbers can be verified by an article that I just came across today, or was it yesterday, Daily News. Look at it. Glendale rents dropped by about 4.5% as opposed to last year. So the story that we have told you, all supported by data, has been confirmed by Daily News, their own data as well, right? At least for the last year. But you've heard the story. We tried to be very compact in presenting it to you. But there is only one thing that I would love for you to remember. Not the numbers. They don't matter. That doesn't tell the entire story. But remember and visualize the following in your mind's eye as you go forward when you're having conversations with legislators, your friends, your clients, and your colleagues, most importantly. And that is that apartment rents in Glendale and Burbank, regardless of whether they're one bedroom or two bedrooms, have rose a whole less than wages, shelter inflation, and CPI. This is the part that tells the entire story, right? And this is the direction that you can see what's rising faster than the other. And if this is true, which it is, based on the data that we have provided you, you can at least deduce that this should have a major policy implications, whether it is City of Burbank considering it, whether it is City of Glendale considering it, or what have you. With that, Mr. President, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
First off, I wanted to thank Greg for including Burbank in his report. For most of you that know, we have been fighting a huge rent control fight in Burbank, and Greg has been staunchly supporting and assisting me with that fight. Greg, in terms of your data, do you feel that your data will actually make any form of an impact towards any council members, anyone in the community that is considering any form of rent control?
Yeah, it's another tool in the shed, Harry. Like you and I, and with our members, we've had lots of conversations about this stuff. It's indisputable. The data, it's indisputable. I mean, if you are going to use a narrative that we can't keep up with inflation, that is not so. At least not in one and two bedroom apartments, right? Which is bulk of the apartments in Burbank and Glendale. So from that point of view, for the policymaker, it may be prudent to consider that. Now, at the very least, what you would expect a policyholder looking at the data and the study that we have just concluded, which you will have a copy of, at the very least, is if they are considering something really, really exorbitant, like a 4% rent cap, versus if this is going to move the needle to bring you to 5.5%. If it does that, it has done its job.
I hope so. I hope so. From your mouth to God's ears. And for those of you that live in Glendale, for those of you that do business in Burbank, you guys understand that essentially these two cities are sister cities, and whatever cancerous occurs in Glendale comes right across the border into Burbank, and whatever cancerous occurs in Burbank crosses right over into the border. So it is vital that both associations continue and work together in beating issues such as this. And just so that you guys understand, Greg and I have an incredible relationship when it comes to government affairs and real estate, and we do work hand in hand whenever issues happen. Thank you guys very much for this presentation.